Attention podcast listener, we've got an exciting new podcast coming just for patrons of patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 has begun exclusively for our $5 and up patrons on the Talking Simpsons Network. That's the first 10 episodes of Futurama coming to you once a week.
So just sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and you'll get Talking Futurama Season 2 and all of our limited miniseries, including the entirety of Talking Futurama Season 1. That's 13 episodes.
That is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now please enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, recorded directly underneath a rotating castle. I'm your host, Revolutionary Churl, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and there's nothing in the rule book that says I can't wear a boy's uniform on this podcast.
Anime Airbud, and who else is here with us on the line?
Hey, this is Casey, and I'm still waiting for my onion prince.
We all are. And today's episode is the Revolutionary Girl Utena episodes, The Rose Bride, and For Whom the Rose Smiles, episodes 1 and 2. I feel like that's
a banger.
That feels like a tongue twister even in Japanese. It's a real tongue twister. But yes, we're talking about Revolutionary Girl Utena, one of the anime 90s greats. And joining us today is Casey, one of our $100 patrons who unlocked this episode. And she's also a guest on it because she's in the highest tier of patrons. Welcome back, Casey, and thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Excited to talk about this one. This is one of my all-time top-tier favorite greats. So it's a little bit in the back catalog now. It's not as brought up as much, I feel, but feel like if I can introduce it to new people, that would be a win because it is a weird delight.
But yeah, the kids don't remember the 90s animes because they're just not on streaming networks. Whenever you see, because we're old, whenever you see, remember classic animes like Full Metal Alchemist? Oh boy. And they're talking about brotherhood probably.
Yeah, very likely. Yeah, I mean, I blame the distributors partially for that. It's like, because, if for American sitcoms that we grew up, like, say, Friends, Simpsons, Seinfeld, those are all highly available. Like, pretty much every major thing from the 90s of American culture is on a streaming network somewhere. It's just, you have to subscribe to like 8 different ones to get them all. But for so many of the anime classics, like, to be available on streaming is pretty rare, and you have to go through a lot of like different hoops to get it. That's why it was such a huge deal when Evangelion went on Netflix. But at least in the United States, though, Utena now is available just on YouTube. Just all 39 episodes are just on Nozomi's YouTube channel.
I'm just mad that every, Crunchyroll and Funimation, they have every like terrible new isekai anime, but they don't have the things I want to watch. They have like, I can't believe I died and got reincarnated as a treasure chest or something like that. And the treasure chest has giant boobs or something. I don't know. I hate that genre. But
that is all of all of those shows.
I can't watch me some Slayers next on streaming. What's going on here? Well, the DVDs are cheap. That's the answer.
I shared with you that really good isekai comic though. I read I died and was reborn as Yamcha in Dragon Ball Z.
I mean, they're not all bad. It's sort of like a new exploding genre, and some people are doing good stuff, and it's always existed. Like there's been good examples of that, but this is not an isekai show.
No, it's very rooted in its own reality. And I guess before me and Bob go into our personal histories with it, like, Casey, why of all shows you could pick, why the anime classic of Revolutionary Girl Utena?
I just love this show. Like, I love, I know this is a 25-year-old show at this point, and even by 25 years ago standards, the animation was not always the best. But like, I love the color palette. I love that this show is like you said, it is very rooted in its own reality. Like, it has some weird things that are going to happen. Some people are going to be ageless. Some people are going to turn into butterflies or cars. But you know what? That makes sense in this weird world. And as like kind of a anime version of feminism, I always found it really interesting. Like the movie itself is called The Adolescence of Utena. And that was in my undergrad. That's actually what I wrote my senior film thesis paper on, the Utena movie.
Cool.
I mean, that film is so dense with symbolism and themes that you could easily write a whole paper on it. You could write a whole paper just on the cow interlude in that movie.
Yes.
But though I don't want to get just upfront, I'll say I think we'll allude to some things, but in case you haven't seen the series, let's not directly spoil
Yes. I think I'm
here.
just gonna watch this now.
Absolutely.
It's,
Yeah, I
fascinating.
heartily endorse watching it, especially if it's available on YouTube for free. I own the 25th anniversary Blu-rays that have like 5 slip covers in the box. You have to uncover to actually get to the discs. It is like an onion. Every time you watch it, there's a new layer to unlock. There's something new to sink your teeth into, or something you didn't realize 30 episodes later. Oh, they brought that up in episode 2. Oh my God. Yeah, and it's just a fun show. There's also a movie that's a different version of the story the show tells. There's the manga, which is a different version the story the series and the movie tell. And yeah, in terms of anime feminism, like I loved that this sort of dove into that virgin whore dichotomy women face while still being a fantastical anime. So if you didn't want to think about that, this was just that really weird anime, and they duel over the Rose Bride, and there's the castle in the sky. But if you do want to sink your teeth into it, it's like, oh yes, the men of the student council represent different types of toxic masculinity, and Juri and Nanami, who are the women on the student council, represent the ways women can internalize misogyny and spit it back out on other women. And, there's so much to this that you can always dive back into, or you can watch the Curry episode where everyone switches personalities and just have a fun time for an afternoon.
Curry episode.
But I love the show. There's a lot it has to offer.
So I mean, my personal history with the show is that like I was always aware of it, and I'd see scenes or stories about it, but it wasn't where I was spending my anime bucks on getting VHSs or DVDs in the late 90s. I had a limited budget, and a lot of that had to go to Rumiko Takahashi series. So
which lasts forever, I understand.
But I mean, especially as a gay person myself, I knew it as like a very queer show and that interests me a lot. Same with like how it challenges a lot of like just gender roles and explores gender as a subject as well. And now having watched it, I wish I'd watched more of it then, because I love how just like super gay it is, as much as it could be on television, censor standards, and also as a super fan of Steven Universe, watching it, I'm like, oh, I now see so many of the tropes and influences that Utena had on the Steven Universe show.
Yes, my Steven Universe aside is we were very excited for Steven Universe. We watched like the first 5 or 6 episodes, and something about it turned me off, and I was like, I don't know if I like this show. And then I saw on Tumblr people were like, oh, here's Pearl doing a sword fighting thing, and it's like literally Utena references, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll give this show one more time. And now I love it. Like it's wonderful and it's amazing, and I really need to catch up on the latest episodes. But
yeah, Future has been a trip. By the time people listen to this, Future's over. But I haven't seen the finale. But boy, it's been something. But yeah, it's been. I feel like I just want to watch it all the way through, all 39 episodes, just to better understand Steven Universe and where it was coming from.
I don't have a lot of experience with this. Of course, course, Henry and I are both part of the anime world through the 90s, and I was in an anime club in the early 2000s when I was in college. And I think, we were all very immature at the time, and this is basically known as the lesbian anime. So that's essentially what I knew about it for a long time, but I knew how weird it was, and how I really liked the look and everything. And at my anime club, we watched the movie one day, and it made no sense, but it was just captivating. At the end, I was like, is this Turbo Teen? What's happening? I don't even know what's going on. But yeah, I've always kept a little note in the back of my mind, like, hey, you should probably watch this. And I'm glad I did for this podcast, because after watching episodes 1 and 2, I'm like, where could they go in 37 episodes? I don't even know like what will happen. So it's been very captivating to just think about where this will go, the storyline and everything. So yeah, I'm on board.
The queerness to this story, the sexuality to this story. I think this was the first time when I was first getting into the show in the late 90s, early aughts. And I was going online, on LiveJournal to try and see, do other people like this show? I think this was the first time I was exposed to the word omnisexual, which I feel describes the show accurately.
Oh yeah, it's gay for everything. And I also kind of like viewing it now as this. Evangelion is one of my all-time favorite animes, and the more I see the themes this explored and its storytelling techniques, and also the connections creatively behind the scenes with Evangelion, it really does feel to me like this is a second show to it, or it works so well and as a secondary show to Evangelion, or I just want to watch it as a show that talks to Evangelion and interacts with similar themes. I really like that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Point I went with in my heavily researched paper about this was that young men have a lot of coming of age stories where they get to become a hero or pilot a giant robot or discover their secret superpower that's stronger than everyone else's superpower. And young women don't have as many of those stories, or even even I love Sailor Moon, but a lot of Sailor Moon is she cries until she wins. And suddenly she's an adult and everything's fine. Or it's about her being in love. And I often thought it was weird that Usagi is such a crybaby, and then every time you see the Queen Usagi, she's very serious and she's an adult and a wife and mother. And that's because there is this lack of adolescent women's stories, so that as a woman, you're basically a child until you get married and have a kid, and then you're a wife and mother.
Yeah.
And there's not that story of learning to grow up and learning about yourself and friends and who to trust and how you feel about things and having your heart broken. And Utena fills that void in quite nicely, similar to Evangelion, where a lot of it is metaphorical and a lot of it is insane, but filling in that space to say, hey, these are things women and girls go through.
Yeah, in both cases, they take a popular anime genre that are both very gendered as well. Giant robot fights for boys, magical girls for the ladies, and in using those as genre starting points, they both explore difficult subjects that if you just made a show just directly about those subjects of hormones and frustrations and bodily changes, that probably wouldn't get sold to a Japanese broadcaster. But if you abstract it through the tropes of other genres, they're able to talk about those things and explore those topics in ways that in some ways that are dated for 25 years ago, and nothing is perfect, but way ahead of the curve of just about anything else in the mid 90s. Well, here, why don't we go into the history then of this series? And it all really begins. We got to talk about one Kunihiko.
Ikuhara.
Yes, Kunihiko Ikuhara. I'm just going to say Ikuhara the rest of the time. But yeah, he's the director of the series, one of the co-creators, and a very important figure in, 90s anime who's still very active today as well. So Ikuhara was born in 1964, a very handsome young man. If you see pictures of him, he's like, oh, you're a pretty boy, Ikuhara.
Yes, always very nicely styled. He looks like an Utena character in real life.
Oh, yeah. No, he is incredibly fashionable and provocative. I mean, when you see this show and see characters, like Toga or Saionji, giving these great speeches, immaculately dressed, you're just like, no real person's like this. You're like, oh, maybe Ikuhara is.
Oh, wow. Look at he's a real himbo. Look at these pictures.
And yes, he, as a young man, he was drawn to anime and manga, but just as much to, avant-garde stage work and poetry and, the French New Wave films, all this stuff. And, in college, he was drawn to a lot of that stuff. And, okay, so one thing that's tough with biographies of Ikuhara is that he gives intentionally combative and enigmatic interviews where he gives as little information as possible. Like, especially, I read a few that were, for English language press and through a translator. And so it's even more obscured where the person says, like, well, would you like to work with an American director? He's like, do you know any good ones? Like, I don't know. And then it's just silence.
He answered your question with a question.
But yes, Ikuhara, one thing I read is that he felt that he wanted to be a storyteller in some genre, and he felt that the pathway through animation would go a lot faster than a lot of other options open to him, like live action or stage in Japanese society in the 80s. So graduates college 85. 1986, he joins the high-level animation studio Toei. We've talked about them a lot. Like, Toei is still one of the best animation studios around, who produced a million major shows. In 86, he started out as, kind of a low-level artist, but worked his way up very quickly on a number of shows that have never come stateside, though I will bring up 80s Nickelodeon favorite Mapletown, which he did work on. Which is a cute little animal show.
Oh, yeah. Look up the opening to that show. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah. And that's where he would get, some of his first projects and also slowly work his way up to like storyboarder and assistant director on both Mapletown and its sequel series, too. There's also one thing I wanted to spell. I saw this spread around that Ikuhara worked on the first 5 episodes of TMNT, something I thought as well. And you can't fully disprove it, but the source on it was that the now, I believe, late original showrunner of TMNT, David Wise, he was the one who said it in a 2013 podcast where he's like, oh yeah, I was having dinner with this guy who worked on all the Sailor Moons and Utena, and I told him I worked on Ninja Turtles, and he said, oh, I worked on those episodes. I worked on those first episodes, but the timeline just doesn't line up. And they've probably were working on those first episodes of Turtles in 87, and Ikuhara was really busy with other shows. So it's one article I read put it to mistranslation of just like maybe him saying, I worked at Toei while they were working on Turtles. But still, a lot of the folks who would go on to work on Sailor Moon did work on those first Turtles episodes.
Yeah, only watch those first 5.
Yeah.
They're the best ones, the only salvageable turtle content.
Especially
all American cartoons are secretly anime.
The good ones anyway.
Should have kept those beaks on those turtles, I'm telling you.
I love those beaks.
Keep the beaks.
Well, those beaks don't look like the toys, I guess, with their just bulbous noses. Beaks, turtles don't, you're right. Turtles don't have noses.
No.
Like they have beaks.
They don't have soft, bulbous faces either. It's gross.
But yes, so Ikuhara, though, did work his way up on a number of other series, from assistant director to even episode director, and he learned much under the mentorship of one Junichi Sato at Toei, one of their more senior guys. He was like 5 years older than him, so It sounds like the typical mentor pupil kohai senpai relationship there, and Sato was teaching him a lot of things. Sato, he's more of a like perfectionist of genre. Like he really appreciated how Ikuhara was more into these crazy storyboards and like dense with themes and adding in multiple interpretive layers, but Ikuhara didn't know like how to do a perfect transformation sequence or the storytelling ways of like, well, no, for this to be a perfect genre show, at minute 3 you got to do this, at minute 6 you got to do this. Like Sato taught him a lot. That would really come together in 1992 when Sato would be the series director for Toei's Sailor Moon series, and he'd bring Ikuhara along with him. Now, we did a whole Sailor Moon podcast, so I won't go too much into that history there, but the important thing is that for the first 39 episodes, Sato was the series director, but Ikuhara was taking on a lot more responsibilities, episode direction, and helping adapt to the show. I don't think him and Naoko Takeuchi have as negative a relationship as some rumors online would say, but she is on the record of saying she didn't like how Rei Hino, Sailor Mars, was changed for the show, and Ikuhara, his favorite character is Rei, and he changed her. So I think that did cause a little friction even in the first series. And Sato kind of stepped back in the second series, Sailor Moon R, and that's when Ikuhara really took over, driving the story, especially with a lot of the original episodes that they needed for filler arcs, and more divergence from the spirit of the original comics was coming in there. Not to mention, like, Ikuhara then took on his biggest project to date as the director and overseer of the Sailor Moon R movie, which I love the Sailor Moon R movie. It's really good. I know some Sailor Scouts out there don't like it as much, but I don't know. How Casey, how do you feel about the R movie?
I went and saw all 3 of the Sailor Moon movies when they released them in theaters last year or the year before, and had a renewed enjoyment of it. It definitely felt like, the side story version of that first short arc in the R season where they had to have 12 episodes of a filler villain. But I definitely enjoy it more than I remember enjoying it. My personal favorite is always the Super S movie, which is a weird, dumb little thing. But when you realize the R movie is Ikuhara, then you're like, oh yeah, the one where like Mamoru has a fabulous boyfriend. Okay, yeah, I can see this is Ikuhara. Got it.
Yeah. It really was one of the first times he could really chew into queer themes in Sailor Moon, and with a childhood friend who treats him as like his boyfriend now, all grown up. And definitely he especially Ikuhara likes like queer stalkers, honestly. Like it comes up a bit, and also incest, which was a bit there in the Sailor Moon R filler arc. Yeah, as an enigmatic guy, I also don't know his like sexuality. I would assume it's pretty fluid, honestly, based on just his many works. I do know he is a big fan of lesbians, though, because and his influence over the Sailor Moon anime would only grow over the next series, S, and he'd really embrace 2 of the newest characters, Sailors Neptune and Uranus. The lesbian couple from space, or cousins if you watched it in America in the first run, and
kissing cousins,
and
kissing cousins.
And the show really pushed the envelope for what you could show with a queer couple, even in the uncut version in Japan, in what was ostensibly a kid series, But I always loved how they treated those characters. Like, there's a really great one-off episode in S where it tells the story of how Neptune and Uranus met and how they became a couple. It's just a very sweet and super gay story. I like that one a lot. Speaking of Ikuhara's fandom of Rei Hino, it's very easy to just find pictures of Ikuhara cosplaying as her too. It's really funny. And also around this time, Ikuhara befriended a fellow animator, Hideaki Anno, who was on his way to directing Evangelion during the S season. And Anno was hired like on a freelance basis to handle overseeing the Neptune and Uranus transformation sequences. So those are directed by Anno-san. It's pretty impressive. And Ikuhara also won't fully deny I read this was fans translated, so who knows how true it was, but somebody asked him, "Are you Kaoru in Evangelion?" And he was like, "Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm as pretty as Kaoru, but me and Anno, we did go on like a onsen trip with all the rest of the Sailor Moon staff one time, and me and him stayed up really late, just drunk in the bathroom, like just talking and talking and talking. Which I do see that scene feels very similar to me, where Kaoru and Shinji are talking in the showers. So I make of that what you will, but I think Ikuhara entirely is Kaoru. I think he's being bashful there. And Anno probably had never heard "I love you" from another man before. But that that's just onsen talk.
You don't take it out of the onsen.
When you have a few drinks with your best guy pal and stay up all night,
just hanging out wearing only a towel.
Yes.
It's called dudes being dudes.
No pants. Workload and creative constraints at Toei were really starting to weigh on Ikuhara on Sailor Moon. He left before the 4th series began. Rumors say that he even pitched a spin-off movie just starring the lesbian couple in it, where they would also be fighting against something known as End of the World. And the story is that the concept grew from there into an original series Ikuhara wanted to create on his own outside of the Toei machine. From there, though, Ikuhara would not be alone. He would form the artist collective B Papas. That's the first name you see in the credits on the opening in this show. And they would create a new series called Revolutionary Girl Utena. So B Papas, the other members, in addition to Ikuhara as the director of it, was we have a screenwriter and a high school friend of his, Yoji Enokido. We have character designer, animator Shinya Hasegawa. We have planner Yuichiro Oguro, and mangaka Chiho Saito. So Enokido, as a screenwriter, had written many scripts for Sailor Moon and actually joined Utena fresh off of writing multiple episode scripts of Evangelion.
Oh, cool.
So,
that makes a lot of sense.
Straight from Evangelion into Utena. And same with Shinya Hasegawa as the character designer and director of a lot of the early animation, particularly in the first episode. He was also very fresh off of Sailor Moon and Evangelion. Meanwhile, we have Chiho Saito, a woman who was already a very accomplished manga creator by 1996 and was tasked with the manga adaptation that would precede the series. So
just like Evangelion.
Yeah, exactly.
But it actually completed not like over the course of 30 years.
Yes.
Or 25 years or whatever.
It's important to note that Saito was already an accomplished manga author, while the creator of the Evangelion manga had never done a manga before.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, he did a pretty good job for never, ever doing it before. Just took a long time.
And yeah, as you noted, Casey, the manga, it tells a similar story as the anime, but it's its own beast, really.
Yeah, absolutely. There are far fewer characters. The anime is 39 episodes, pretty clearly split into 3 arcs, pretty much every 13 episodes. The manga pretty much is just that first arc, and a much less gay and queer-coded version of the story that's in the anime.
Mm-hmm. That is what I had read as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's only 5 volumes, so it's a quick read if you ever are curious.
Okay. Well, and also the series would embrace more subversive tones, and also even in the ways that Evangelion was, get downright combative with its audience and their expectations. Not to mention, like, having philosophical themes and transgressive attitudes, critical of society's views on gender and sexuality, and really pushing the envelope of what could even be broadcast on a TV anime back in 1997 when the series would finally debut in April.
Yeah, this definitely picks up where Evangelion left off, and it was one of those times where I had to make sure I was watching the right episode because it feels like you were just eavesdropping on this world because they make a lot of non-traditional choices. If you look at like the first half and a little further into that of Evangelion, just like it's very traditional storytelling where it's like, well, here's this character, let's slowly introduce them, let's give them an arc, let's just make these like beat by beat story choices that are very traditional, but the things we're doing within that is interesting and weird. After that, it's just like let's fuck around, let's play with the little budget we have left, and let's make these weird alienating choices. Like this series starts there, where it's just like, who are these people? They're throwing all these characters in your face. They don't get traditional introductions. It's all very like interesting and captivating because you're just trying to keep up, really.
Though I will say about Utena in comparison to Ikuhara's later series, I feel like Utena definitely frog boils you more into the weirdness than any of his other shows do.
Yeah.
Like at least this is like, oh, okay, they're sword fighting over a girl and they're probably going to go to that castle someday, I guess. And like, oh, she's got to protect her friend. All right, cool. They're in a weird school with the crazy staircases or whatever. Yeah. Okay, I get it. As opposed to, in 20 more episodes, there's like a sex car and everyone has a sword. And you're like, what is happening?
Well, I think, that the frog boiling thing, he could take more time because that was there's more episodes. Like these days, if he can sell a new series, you get like 12 episodes and then one OVA special or whatever. But yeah, also the influences of Utena were wide ranging but two key inspirations I wanted to point out was first off, Rose of Versailles, or specifically the late 70s, early 80s adaptation of Rose of Versailles, overseen by Osamu Dezaki, who Dezaki is known for like a lot. He was an incredibly influential animator of the 70s and 80s. Like I believe when a animated scene then fades into a painted version of it, it's just called a Dezaki.
Oh yeah, I think you're right about that. And I think that Rose of Versailles adaptation is on Crunchyroll or Funimation. It's available. It's available.
Yeah, it's available somewhere. I've definitely watched a few episodes of it, but I cannot remember where.
It's in case you don't know, Rose of Versailles is a period drama set during the directly preceding and during the French Revolution at Versailles, and the lead character is a woman who dresses as basically a knight, and it for 79, 80, it also really challenged gender norms and even had sapphic romances in it as well. Thematically, a lot of similarities there with Rose of Versailles, but also the Hermann Hesse literary classic Demian as well is a big influence on this.
Now, I've watched Herman's Head. Is that similar at all?
Well, they both have a lot of. It's about coming of age as well, in a way.
That's true.
But honestly, I read that book a million years ago and barely remember it. I did read Hesse's Siddhartha, like his version of the story of Buddha, but Demian, from the comparisons I read, it is a coming of age story as well, set in high school, though no sword fights as far as I can recall. But yeah, it's a coming of age tale, and especially the lines about the chick cracking the egg in the second episode, and which gets repeated a lot in the series.
Yep.
That is directly from Hermann Hesse's work. Like he makes the exact comparison of saying to grow up is to be the chick that shatters the egg. If you don't destroy the world around you, then you'll just die inside the egg and you'll never be born. So Utena very directly embraces that symbolism. So yes, the show would premiere April 1997, and production was handled by JC Staff, which got started up in the mid 80s during the OVA boom. I think their biggest work to that point had been the OVA of New Dominion Tank Force, if you remember that one from your Blockbuster anime days.
Are there cat girls in that one?
Am I thinking of something else? They did Miku,
okay.
Which I think was a cat girl thing. But JC Staff was a smaller production house than Toei, so if you were to watch, an episode of Sailor Moon S versus an episode of Utena, you can tell there's a budgetary difference in those shows.
We've actually done one of their series for What a Cartoon,
really?
Excel Saga.
Oh, okay, yeah. Which also, budgetary constraints, but also a well done show.
Yes.
Actually, I guess they did it just 2 years after this then, didn't they?
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, so JC Staff was the producers on it. A lot of great music in this. The key themes that play over the fights are from J.A. Cesar, which that's an accomplished Japanese musician who, at the time, and I still think to this day, rarely worked in anime, but he was a favorite of Ikuhara. And so, the opening sound there, these like hard rock operatic stuff, that's all Cesar. There are also many other songs composed by Shinkichi Mitsumune, also a really good composer. And the Utena series, over time, it kind of, starts with like a duel of the week kind of feel, but very slowly that turns into, more introspection, and also played out over 3 13-episode arcs, ending in an enigmatic finale that left many viewers with more questions than answers.
Do you know if it was immediately picked up for 39 episodes or what? Because it feels like that was kind of odd for this time period, especially with an untested project like this.
I don't think there were any gaps in the broadcasts. I
just didn't know if they're like, okay, you get 26 and then like 5 in. They're like, this is popular enough, make 13 more.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Casey, you've seen the whole thing. Does it feel like they're, like how in Sailor Moon they had to do that filler just because they're like, oh crap, we are doing more of these. Okay, let's do some filler.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the second story arc, one of the characters does not appear because his voice actor was on concert tour.
Okay.
And the first 13 episode arc ends with one of those filler recap episodes where there is new stuff in it, but it's largely like, yes. And then Utena fought this duel and kind of getting you up to speed, which feels like it would be a good midpoint for anyone who hadn't watched those episodes but was about to watch the next 13 coming along. So I don't know for certain, but I also feel like it came out during a time when it felt more common that shows had at least 26 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
That clip show episode comes right around the same time Evangelion had its clip show as well.
Yes.
It's when
and towards the end of Utena, there are a couple more clip show episodes, much closer in distance from each other.
It's when the staff is most near death. You have one of those.
After the series ended, the B-Papas got together to work on a film as well. It that's the mark of a popular series and shows that it did well, that you can instantly start working on the films. The film would release in 1999, and in interviews, Ikuhara even said like, "Oh yeah, we can be dirtier in the movie,"
and it is,
and dirtier they were. Like they could get much more explicit with queer themes, and especially the relationship between Anthe and Utena that they couldn't do on 1997 television, and led to a film finale that we've kind of like lightly joked about here, but I'll just say like confused even the staff. I saw Ikuhara was like, yeah, other people didn't know what was going on with this either.
The car thing is not a spoiler because we're spoiling like nonsense almost.
Yes.
Nonsense in like a non-negative way. Just like, well, what is this? What's happening? But it's cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like Utena could somewhat be like Twilight, where you could just make a tight 5 out of saying, all right, here's what happens in Utena. There's a bit about a car. There's a cow.
The South Park Scientology gag of like, this is what actually happened.
Yes.
And yes, once the series was complete, Utena's tale of, queer gender-defying action and deep thematic storytelling, he struck a chord with viewers around the world. I know from friends of mine who were really into it that like in the late 90s, on shows where like Buffy the Vampire Slayer could barely have one lesbian couple in it, that this show felt revolutionary. Hey,
I like it.
I said the title.
But yeah, especially in animation, like it took frickin' almost 20 years. It did take 20 years after Utena debuted in Japan for an American animated series like Steven Universe to to have two female characters kiss on screen, like, and that took an extraordinary amount of effort from the creator Rebecca Sugar to even get away with doing that. Like, that changed animation, and I think, you know, it's not a surprise that Rebecca Sugar is a huge fan of Utena and wanted to push the envelope in a similar way. And the show has had like varying availability in the US for the last 20 years. Definitely, it never like disappeared like how Evangelion disappeared for 15 years.
Yeah, it looks like it got picked up pretty quickly by Right Stuff or something. Right Stuff. Because I'm looking online just to see when the original VHS release came out. It was 98, and guess what? There are still some of these you can buy new on Amazon for like $9.99 if you want to buy the VHS.
Release in America was a little strange because I remember it had 2 DVDs, and that was the whole first 13 episodes, which, you know, that was unheard of at the time, that each one of those had 6 or 7 episodes on it. My God. And then they released the movie, and then it was like 3 or 4 years before they released the rest of the series.
Damn.
And those had more traditional, like 3 episodes a disc. And then a few years ago, Right Stuff re-released it as a really nice DVD box set. And then a few years later, re-released it as a very nice Blu-ray set.
Yeah, I believe there are 4 Blu-rays.
There's 3 boxes and a book, and I think it also comes with a dualist's ring if you want to fight strangers over a bride.
I want a sword.
I also want a sword.
There's a lot of cosplayers out there who could show you where to get those swords at. Yeah, and Nozomi is Right Stuff. It's like I think it's now just their publishing arm of anime.
Yeah.
And a quick aside about Right Stuff. They were in the late 90s one of my favorites because, I mean, their catalog just had these like long essays on anime history that felt more in depth than anything I could find in the GeoCities pages I was Alta-Vistaing. But also like in a time when Viz was selling me 2 episodes on a tape, I could get, you know, Irresponsible Captain Tyler, and the first tape had like 4 episodes on it. It felt like an incredible deal.
Loved getting that giant Right Stuff catalog in the mail, which they still have a thinner catalog, but it's just not the same. But I understand why.
One of my earliest journalistic, I'm putting big air quotes around that, things I did was when I was reviewing anime in the early 2000s. This is probably like either late 2001 or early 2002. I actually did an interview with Jeff Thompson of the Right Stuff, and he was like a major producer there. He was hired in like the mid 90s, like 94, and we had a conversation about like torrents were new, and I'm like, what do you think about these torrents? People can download stuff. He's like, oh, we're keeping an eye on those. And then he was like later at some of the Ohio cons and around Cleveland, I think they were.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
no, I have a friend from Marysville, so I used to go to those.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, I went to quite a few Ohio cons. Unfortunately, he passed away in like 2006, like suddenly in his like early 30s. But it was like one of my first like dabblings with actual journalism, doing an actual interview over the phone, recording it with like a handheld recorder with a little tape, and then transcribing it. It was super renegade journalism, but I do remember that. I wish it's probably still online somewhere, but yeah, the Right Stuff was my first like instance of, you know, journalism.
Man, that's I'm impressed. Like I didn't do my first like interview until I was in the game. I was far enough in the games press that they just sat me down with somebody to talk about a game that no one else on the staff cared about.
I didn't even go to J school.
I think I remember applying for a job at Right Stuff once, and I could not tell you what the job was because it was when I just got out of college, and they probably had like a customer service posting up, and I was like, I'll move to Iowa. I want to work for anime.
Was it in Iowa? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting that telephone book sized Right Stuff catalog. It was I more than one Christmas was getting that catalog and then telling my mom like, okay, you get me like 5 of these. Like here's a list of 20. Just whatever's in your budget. Get some of these.
I like maybe a few years ago, one of those showed up in my apartment out of nowhere. I think it happened to you too. Like it was like maybe like 2014, 2015. Just like, oh, the Right Stuff catalog is here in my mailbox. Like what's going on? But they have like amazing deals on stuff.
They undercut Amazon in a big time. They do. Like,
absolutely. That's whose Black Friday deals I watch. Like, we watch out for Right Stuff's Black Friday
I
deals.
still have all of my unopened DVDs and Blu-rays from like 2 years ago when they had a
Yeah.
sale of all of Pat Labor and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, I just bought and haven't even unsealed it yet. I bought the Blu-ray of the new Fujiko 40-minute special.
Oh, cool.
That's set in the same darker, bloodier Lupin universe as Jigen's Blood Spray.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
I've seen so many anime companies just die, so it's cool to see that they're still kicking and still like a good distributor.
I'll be sad if Right Stuff ever goes
God,
away.
yeah.
That Right Stuff with one F. That's right. So this is just an F.
That
Right Stuff.
always confuses me and kind of infuriates me.
Actually, some of my first journalism was some of my first writing on the internet was writing a review for New Cutie Honey, one of their tapes on the Right Stuff review pages.
Good anime.
Good time. Yeah, I think that just got a re-release as in Blu-ray form, New Cutie Honey. But anywho, real quick, just to finish up on Utena's history. After the movie came out, which is a gorgeous movie, I rewatched that too on YouTube this week. After that, B-Papas basically disbanded. Like they wouldn't work collectively again together, though combinations of them would still be working together a lot of times. Like Ikuhara and Saito, the manga artists, they'd work on a manga series called like World of S&M, for example.
Interesting. And
Of course they did.
I'm not sure if we said this, but it's all available legally on YouTube.
Yes,
it's
yeah.
it's in not like it's like in DVD resolution. You can buy the Blu-rays and see the glorious like Blu-ray images, but it's still watchable. Yeah.
Oh, it's real. Yeah. And also the rumors persisted for years after Utena that Ikuhara was difficult to work with, and many people pointed to like for basically a decade, for the entire like aughts to 2011, he didn't have a new series. Like he didn't direct another anime series after Utena was over. Though once he finally, I think that was when the anime industry kind of rebounded into the 2010s, and he was getting to work on more shows, and he started directing shows that were honestly way crazier and gayer than Utena.
Yeah, I mean, the aughts in anime were like just lousy with the anime waifu shows. I mean, they're still around. They never went anywhere, but it felt like there was nothing other than that. There'd be like 2 anime a year. It's like, okay, we were allowed to do a non-anime moe waifu show. But now, like, I think the last decade, and this one has been really, really good for alternative, good animation for adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including his shows. Well, you say, he didn't do moe, but Yurikuma Arashi is quite moe.
I've heard it's like a really, really good show.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah. I've heard too. Actually, like deals with. It's called Yurikuma Gay Bear or Lesbian Bears. Like that's what it is.
Lesbian Bear Storm, I believe, is the.
But yeah, I think it actually. I love Yuri on Ice, which is actually about gay men, not lesbians.
They should change that title.
But I love Yuri on Ice, but there's a level of explicitness they kind of don't cross in the show, and but in Yurikuma, I think they are very explicit of like, we are a couple, we are women in love. This is not, we're not friends who are close. We're gay.
We're not cousins. Yurikuma is one of his shows that I felt it's almost so explicit it goes into like this exploitative fetishization territory.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Like I definitely watched all of that because I was like, all right, this is Ikuhara, and I have faith in Ikuhara. But if this were anyone else, I'd be like, oh no, not for me, thank you.
And I watched the first episode of Saruzanmai, which you could also call like Butthole Police is the show.
Yes.
Better title. Yeah, it's about
sexy otters and
sexy otters, kappas.
Butthole Police, open up.
Yeah. There's some very gay police in that show too. But yes, it's a show about 3 teen boys who are turned into kappas, and it's about getting in touch with your secrets and learning to open up. And there's a lot of queer themes, and also I think the weekly episodic battle is about fighting, a theoretical monster who's based on some level of guilt, and you have to free him of his guilt by pulling something out of his butthole.
Well, the truth about kappas, they don't teach kids in schools. They're always trying to poke at your butthole
That's
when
true.
you're underwater. So watch out for those guys.
And Ikuhara's worked on other shows, but those are the two I am most familiar with. That's pretty much the history, unless there's anything you wanted to add, Casey.
I would add his other show he's worked on since Utena, which is the one I like best. It was called Mawaru Penguin Drum.
Oh, yeah.
And that one had some queer themes, but also I feel like did a little bit of the Utena thing where you kind of got frog boiled into the premise so that the early episodes still have magical weird elements, and then by the end it's super crazy off the rails, but you've been watching the whole time, so you're like, yeah, sure, of course, this penguin came to life and found the magical crystal inside the diary.
I should check that one out too. I watched some clips of Yurikuma and Sarazanmai the first episode, but I want to hang out more with Sarazanmai, but now first I got to finish watching 36 more episodes of Utena. But okay, why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go over the landmark first 2 episodes of Revolutionary Girl Utena. Hey, it's Henry Yoder, and I hope you guys are enjoying this audio version of A Bouquet of Roses from us.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob Mackey. I'm pulling a sword from my chest, and it's very painful.
And we thank you, as always, for listening this week to our What a Cartoon podcast. So much fun, not just to go through Utena, but also to talk about it with a fan of the show and one of our top patrons, Casey. Thank you so much, Casey, for picking this and getting me and Bob to really engage with Utena in ways we hadn't before. And she's just one of our many patrons who support us at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Yes, if you want to support the show and get all of our episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, but also access to all of our mini-series, which includes our most recent one, Talking Mission Hill. It's currently unfurling. We're going through all 13 episodes of the Mission Hill animated cartoon series. It's great. It's produced by Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, some of our favorite Simpsons people, and we're having so much fun digging into it. But along with that, you'll get access to all of our previous miniseries like Talking of the Hill, Talking Critic, almost 2 seasons of Talking Futurama, and so many more things on top of that, like interviews, end of season wrap-ups, deleted scene specials, and so on. There is so much extra content there that we've been making for the past almost 3 years, and if you sign up immediately, you'll get access to all of it. So many hours of content to burn through, and more coming every day. And Henry can tell everybody out there what's happening at the $10 level. 1 extra long podcast every month about a movie.
That's right. On the What a Cartoon feed, you know that once a month we do our What a Cartoon movie preview. But if you want to hear the entire thing, where me and Bob talk often for over 4 hours about an animated feature film, you got to sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. You get all that $5 stuff Bob just talked about, but you also get our monthly What a Cartoon movie. This month's the anime classic with a capital C, Hayao Miyazaki's The Castle of Cagliostro, and you will learn a ton about Lupin, as well as an underrepresented member of Hayao Miyazaki's mentorship. And that's just the start, because you'll get all the previous What a Cartoon movies we did before Castle of Cagliostro. That's films like SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, The Great Mouse Detective, The Animatrix, Iron Giant, Toy Story, Aladdin, a Goofy movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Akira, Kiki's Delivery Service, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and many, many more. You get so many cool things and more each month at the $10 $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
If you've never been on Patreon before, it's so easy to sign up. And once you do sign up for our Patreon, you're given a code. You have access to that code at all times. You just drop that into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And you can listen to our bonus podcast alongside of your normal free podcast and fit us into your podcasting lifestyle that way. Patreon also has a very good app for your smart device if you want to listen to our bonus content that way. But either way, it is very easy to access the nearly 3 years worth of extra content that's available at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
All right, and now why don't we head back to high school and put on our uniforms, whichever one you choose, and talk about Revolutionary Girl Utena. Okay, and we're back. You just heard the opening theme, Rondo Revolution. That is written by Toshiro Yabuki and performed by Masami Okui. And it's a fun classic anime OP.
Also a banger.
Yeah.
I love 90s opening songs. I love whatever this genre of music is. It's so great.
And the OP animation is really great too. Like you can see, the themes all present there, like the characters in silhouette. You'd see all the action, and the opening shot is just like roses turning in place. And I won't pretend that this is my brilliant idea, but I saw several folks bring up that so many things in this are about dualities and dual meanings and
duels.
And duels. Yes. But that a big point I saw made was that the word revolution has two meanings. It can mean an actual revolution, a huge change, changing the world kind of thing. But revolution can also mean revolving, completing a circle around the sun for a year.
A lot of things are spinning around in this series.
Yeah, so that's why you have all this spinning, and that also lets you know, like, well, a revolution can also mean everything happens as normal. A year happens as...
Yes, you're staying, or it could also mean you're staying in place, just going in circles.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting, thing to think about with just the general themes in the series. And also in the opening, like, Utena and Anthe get close and closer to kissing. Like, no, you don't get it. No. They make you wait. They make you wait for that kiss.
Though I will say, spoiler from the opening, I was personally disappointed that at no point in the series do Utena and Anthe put on heavy metal knight armor and ride horses through the sky.
Oh, I feel very lied to knowing that.
I have always been disappointed by that does not happen.
Not going to watch the rest now. I'm sorry. I was waiting for that part.
I wanted to see Valkyrie action, man.
I know.
One more note about the opening I really liked is the shots of both Utena and Anthe as they, it's them from behind and then they turn to face the camera. I like that in the background for Utena, it's all the boys walking, and then on Anthe's side, it's all the girls walking. Like they're very defined by the uniforms they wear too. And
gender roles.
And yes, the show, though, goes straight into Utena's origin and also two of the key visual motifs of the whole series, which are stories told in silhouette and also the rose frames over key shots.
I love that device, and I think it wouldn't work as well in a show with a different aspect ratio for some reason. I could be wrong, but it just feels like it's so good for this 4:3 ratio.
Oh, yeah.
This image you're seeing on the screen. I do love it.
This is the show that you can't Simpson style crop to HD because you'll just see.
Yeah, hear that, Disney.
When they eventually buy the rights, JC staff and own this.
Yeah, when Disney is bored and they can't buy anything else, they're like, let's just buy all the anime too. Why not?
And yeah, the silhouettes in flashback, especially, like lots of shows picked up from that, but especially like Steven Universe, many of the key flashback stories told like in the old times of the Gem War use this very similar, like, silhouettes on bodies, but also colored hair and clothes.
I'm also doing the finger thing means the money.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Cheap technique that looks very good. I feel like
right.
This is produced on a low budget. We're like in Japan's quote unquote lost decade after the economic crash of the 80s. Animes are really cheap in the 90s.
Yeah.
They have to be.
The origin of Utena is great, with this mysterious prince showing up to save her. And, in a lot of, the classic fairy tale story, it would be the princess falls in love with the prince, given a ring. But instead, Utena has the idea like, well, I have to become a prince who can help people too. Yeah.
Her takeaway was princes are cool.
Yeah.
Not like I'm going to become a princess,
And I love her in like her Superman pose or Wonder Woman pose with like the big billowy pantaloons that a classic style prince wears. It's a great
like the Snow White Prince Charming.
Yes, yeah. Basically, you see Snow White become Prince Charming in this flashback. Like it's very empowering, and that it makes Utena a great hero from the start. That she's just like, well, yeah, I need to become a prince to help people and save them, like I was saved. But yes, then we cut to present day, the start of the school year, which is a smart opening for a lot of anime, especially when major ones like this begin their broadcast at the start of the Japanese school year at the beginning of April. We get to meet Wakaba first on screen, the somewhat annoying and clingy best friend, but I still kind of like her.
There are these characters in the shoujo I've seen. It's normally like the friend has like an epic girl crush on the main character for being so cool.
Kakoi.
Yeah, exactly. And she's one of them. I think there's even one in Kill la Kill, right?
I feel like the Kill la Kill girl is mocking Wakaba and similar ones, like because the one in
influence.
the one in Kill la Kill is like an unkillable moron, is what she is.
But she's also always hanging off the main character, right?
Yes, yeah. Even more physically so, like groping or just like, well, just a friend hug. It's just friends tuck
Yes,
in.
Wakaba is sort of here to set up that no homo of Utena to be like, well, yeah, she dresses like a boy and plays basketball with the boys, but she's not like that.
Yeah. The way if Utena was, as gay as say Jury is, she'd be so happy to have a Wakaba hanging all off her, but instead she's just like, please stop this.
I could be completely ignorant about this, but I think like culturally in Japanese society, like the relationship of women is different than it is in the West. Even if you're not, attracted to women, like female best friends will hold hands and things like that. Where I don't think you would necessarily see that in America.
Something I remember researching many years ago and reading was that the reason a lot of these relationships in anime are amongst like young characters or high school characters or middle school characters is because, you're hanging out with people of your same gender. And of course, you're going to have a crush on someone of your same gender. And then you'll become an adult and grow out of that and marry a person of another gender and have 2.5 children or what. So I think that's where this is normalized of like, oh yeah, of course she has a crush on her cool best friend who dresses like a boy and wants to be a prince. And all the girls are like, oh, Utena-sama.
These, yes, as an outsider to Japanese culture, I can only guess at it. But the themes I've seen in so many high school animes often address these intense same-sex friendships that can, grow. Many stories come from those feelings growing into romantic feelings and it being expressed in romantic ways. But at the very least, like the fangirl parade for a tall tomboy type like Utena is, one of my favorite parodies of that was in Azumanga Daioh.
Yes. That's great.
And that they just straight up like make her top fangirl fully gay for her, having sexual dreams of her being saved.
Dressed as a prince.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's right.
And I loved all of her. The running joke with the fangirl character in that was that every year she couldn't go on the summer trips to see her in a bikini, and it drove her crazy. But you're right that it is often presented as just like, well, once you're an adult, though, that is not okay.
Right.
Heteronormative relationships are what you're expected to do.
I think that's part of it. What I was also saying was it's not necessarily like a romantic attraction. It's just like friendships can be more closely physically intimate if you're a woman in the East compared to the West. I could be wrong about this. It's just my perception based on things I've read and watched and things like that. So please, if you know more about it, let me know.
And I think to a degree, Ikuhara wants a lot of fan service in the direction of intense female friendships that grow into something more. Like I think that is a story that appeals to him quite a lot as a creator. But yeah, so we also hear that Wakaba is waiting up for Utena, but can't see her because Utena left early, which honestly, if I'm her, I leave early and avoid my clingy best friend groping me all the time.
It's interesting, like a more interesting choices where you would think like the first shot, I mean, the intro is about her, but we don't know that. But you think the first shot of like the actual world that we're in would be of the main character and not like this side character. So that's another interesting choice.
Yeah. Though it does follow the Poochie rule of they're all talking about her when she's not on
So where's Utena?
They should be asking.
She needs access to a time machine, but that might happen in this series for how weird it is.
The movie rastifies Utena by 10%.
Bigger hair.
Actually, her hair shrinks quite a lot in the movie.
Oh, you're right.
But then we get some flashes of Otori Academy. It's very lovely, and you get a preview of a lot of the background art you're going to be seeing throughout the series, and it's just a really great series of establishing shots that lets them show off like some of their best art in a series that, that you front load the first episode with some of your best stuff and you cut the corners later once you got people hooked, as at least when you're dealing with a tough budget crunch as most televised anime does.
All the beautiful shots they will reuse start here. All the good stuff is up front.
Absolutely. Yeah, the school, that's just a bunch of paintings that they can take up 5 seconds by moving them slowly past each other. So there's a lot of that in this series. I mean, think it's also like drawing on that magical girls. Like,
oh yeah,
Utena gets a transformation sequence, even though she's not really transforming that much. They will definitely lean on a lot of repetitive stuff, especially around the duels.
But Utena does arrive, and her intro is a really cool one. Of just it begins with shattering gender norms, and I do have just a quick clip of it because I really love the comedic acting on the teacher who, very briefly I thought, oh, is she a major villain in this? And I feel like it's just a one-off joke and she kind of doesn't matter after that.
I think she appears once more, and that's it.
This school is not about teaching or learning. It's about epic battles.
Yes, yeah. Well, you do need to at least have homeroom so you could meet up with your friends to learn story points. Like, you at least do that. The teacher talks to Utena. We get to learn her name, and we also learn that Utena comes to school wearing the boys' uniform, and she defeats she seems like every year she defeats her gruff teacher by reminding her that it doesn't say anywhere in the rule book that a girl can't wear a boy's uniform.
Again, the Airbud clause. It's airtight.
I also wrote that down in my notes, like Airbud uniform.
And honestly, the teacher, it's her fault. She had the whole semester break to try and amend that rule book and say that girls have to wear girl clothes.
Actually, it could be called the Utena rule because Airbud came out that August. So this came first.
But I'm going to play the clip here. It is all in Japanese, but I love how the teacher just yells at her in this bit here.
天上ウテナさん、あなたは新学期になってもそのヘンテコな格好を続けるつもりですか？ヘンテコ？ヘンテコ。男子はみんな似たような格好してますよ。あなたは女子だからなぜ男子の制服を着ているのですか？
Good scream on her.
This guy!
And like a lot of the, like a ton of background music in the 90s anime, it is such a brassy 70s soundtrack. I don't know why they landed on 70s. Maybe just that's how old the composers were. That's when they started. But such cool background music in the series.
I feel like this is giving off, trying to give like a regal, like a march.
Yeah.
Like you'd be expecting, like, yes, the king and queen will come through the school at any minute. And I think it's trying to give off that air. I think in the manga, they try and ground this series in the real world somewhat.
Yeah.
So I think they say this school is somewhere in Europe.
It's not clear, and maybe we're not supposed to know, but like, is there television? Do people have cell phones? What century is this? It could be like a century ago.
I do love the Francophile flavor of the whole thing, like how, and except it's as we'll see more in episode 2, it's French until it's Japanese. Like it's a French school until they're like, well, but there's of course a kendo club, like we. But yes, after she defeats her teacher and just leaves that comedy character laying, we then cut to Utena, besting all the boys at basketball. Which,
flower petals just shooting everywhere.
The mix of a spinning basketball with rose petals everywhere is such a lovely visual. And I also though like that it's just a bunch of stills, like they don't waste their budget on basketball action because the show is not about basketball. So why waste your money?
That was a real head fake. I'm like, is this like Slam Dunk? What are we doing?
Slam Dunk could have used more rose petals.
And I like, she beats all the boys, and they're just like, man, we suck. We're bad at basketball. And yes, it shows that not just Wakaba is into her, but all the girls are just like, here, have my towel. Oh, I have the water here. Like, they're all like blushing and fawning over her. And she deals with it with gentle good humor. I even like how she's just like, okay, I'll take your towel. It's your turn. It's your turn to give me the towel. Then as Utena walks away and is putting back on her clothes, which I really love the move she makes that her giant hair gets caught under her jacket. So she has to like pull it out from under. then as she's walking away, you get to hear in voiceover the basketball team like offering her a spot on the team. And she's like, I don't want to be around all you smelly boys all the time. And they're like, well, you dress like a boy. And it's a key moment for her of saying just like, you know, I have these masculine things I'm into, but I identify as a girl. I'm still a girl. Don't treat me like a boy. Like it's, she's being very like, you know, rebellious and non-binary, I'd even say, with her gender expression, which it's in general, I like that about Utena, that she has this kind of, you know, as a prince, this kind of chivalrous attitude, which doesn't really fit with like a punk rock ethos, but just her existing is transgressive against society, even though she is more about like upholding standards of society as well. But yes, then we get a very innocent first view of the complex character of Anthe Himemia. Say that 3 times fast. That's, but we get to see her in her greenhouse, which again, when I saw that, I was like, there's like 3 greenhouses in Steven Universe that look just like that. And I realized where they got it from there. And Wakaba sneaks up on Utena as she's watching over Anthe at the greenhouse, and we get to see like a rather harsh slap on screen.
These first 2 episodes, it's like a real glove slap fight.
Yeah.
There.
The abuse Anthe goes through is hard to watch sometimes, but I mean it's to make you hate Seonji and to spur on Utena. But you know, I guess don't spoil anything for me. But I feel like Seonji is going to go through some kind of face turn, and for me it is hard to take redemption arcs from like physically abusive men to women. But I don't know. Don't spoil anything for me, Casey.
All right.
But Seonji here in these 2 episodes, a dick, just a real chauvinistic asshole who they build him up pretty good as a good enough villain for 2 duels in 2 episodes. And then we get to see Toga, his male friend, his
every
good buddy.
like man is like just a pompous ass so far in the series.
Yes.
I like Toga's baby as
baby.
Utena is watching this exchange with Seonji and Anthe, and Wakaba explains to her who these characters are. There's a lot of exposition needed in these early episodes. So she explains to Utena that they're on the student council and you don't mess with those people. And that shows like, I love a high school show that's like, oh, the student council, you will instantly be introduced to them and they are the villains of this and all powerful.
Apparently there's no faculty at this school. Just like the student council runs it. It was a bloody coup.
And they're all like 15 and talking about the end of the world. Though, I mean, Seonji and Toga, they look much like how Mamoru in Sailor Moon looks way older than the girls around him. They look like adult men.
Yeah.
All fighting over the Rose Bride. Utena wants to know more, but Wakaba like is shoving her out the window basically with how much he's hugging her. And we get to find out that Wakaba has a thing for Seonji as well, which I like that Utena's like, oh, so you're into these type of guys. And then Wakaba's like, you're my true love. I'm only into you. No, I don't like guys. Yuck. And yes, then we get the typical in magical girl shows, the long introduction to the group of villains. And each one kind of gets a line.
The student council tower of posing.
Yeah. And also they even allude to the dangers of whoever the end of the world is. He. Yeah.
Or the famous translation of that person. Ooh, it's that person.
And
that man.
I think I read somewhere too that Ikuhara, there's one character who's constantly like listening to other people talk and then hitting a stopwatch.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I believe I read somewhere that Ikuhara never even told his co-authors like what it was about. He's just like, it's just a thing. It's just a character.
And,
yeah,
like, they show you. Yeah.
There's a lot of theorizing about what Miki's up to. No one knows.
She's animation timer on this episode.
Yes. He's trying to time out the storyboards. Miki is a gentle musician boy. In terms of ages, I think he is actually around the same age as Anthe and Utena, because they're all in the middle school.
I see.
Seonji, Toga, and Judy are in the high school.
I see. So Otori covers middle and high school.
Yeah.
then.
And I think elementary that shows up later, that they're like real little kids running around.
How do people get into this? I'm very confused. But yes, we get some, talk about how they feel Seonji is being a little too mean to the Rose Bride, and he's like, I can do whatever I want, or you guys can challenge me if you want to. I'm out of here, losers, and just heads out. Then we get the eye catch, which I don't know. I wish it's just like the title overread.
Like CGI text and a nice little sting.
The CGI text in '95 was impressive enough, so they just said, "We'll stop there."
We've got computers.
Man, the eye catch did just disappoint me a little bit because Sailor Moon has some of my favorite eye catches. I just love them. They're so cute. All the chibi versions of them having fun little adventures. Again, this is a tightly budgeted show, so. And
they're like, it's CGI, it's in French. What more do you people want?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. That in 97, that CGI pretty impressive back then. So we come back from the commercial break and we see Utena and Wakaba doing the classic high school anime kid thing of sitting on the hill by the river that apparently all high schools have in Japan.
Sure.
And they're having some fun cloud talk, basically. But I really like that Utena she restates the opening from the show just to make it fully clear that the child in the story is her and that she got the ring. But I like that Wakaba's like, I'm growing up. Fairy tales are old to me now. Like those are a thing of childhood, those kind of fairy tales. Like Wakaba's already coming of age and not believing that she's waiting for an onion prince as her mother told her.
I think this is the point we realize the story at the beginning is about her. The story at the beginning of the episode, the fairy tale. You're like, oh yeah, she was the girl. But then it's just like, well, what is the reality of this world? And I guess her parents are dead.
Yeah.
You would assume watching this, that opening is a metaphor for the story that will be told, or it's an allegory. But it's like, no, that was literally what happened to this character.
There is a later episode that's kind of like the here is what actually happened story that is still very interesting and is still very true to the world of Revolutionary Girl Utena. So it is, of course, not terribly far off from something fairy tale like. But it is kind of interesting. I like that she says it herself because we know that when she goes to the greenhouse, she's like, oh, why does rose scent always remind me of the past? So it's not necessarily like the memory is very clear and explicit in her head, even if the feeling it gave her is that she's going to be a prince. So that becomes a point later on that she wouldn't necessarily know her prince if she ran into him in the street.
Some good main
she
character.
She doesn't necessarily remember what he looks like.
Some good main character amnesia going on here.
Oh, yeah. She's lucky she grew into that rose crest ring as well.
It's been resized a few times.
It's like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It just kind of grew with her. It's fine.
The ring also just lets them draw some really great hands all through these two episodes.
Every limb is spindly and long. The legs are insane on these characters. I love it. I love how unrealistic it is. They're 80% leg, and their hips are 2% of their body, just a little bit of hip, and then a small torso above that.
So the Ikuhara had just come off Sailor Moon, so this was the fashion at the time.
He's like, I'm going to make bigger legs.
No one has even 5% body fat.
Nope.
Yes.
Yes, then we get a very typical high school anime moment of the mean, handsome man posting the love letter that was given to him to humiliate the person. It's very cruel, but that's the sending of a love letter is a cherished thing. That to mock them by putting it up is quite mean. Even worse when it's Wakaba, which was very well set up with her, saying Seonji wouldn't go for girls like her, and letting you know her interest. I like that Utena showing that she's a good person instantly tears it down and then reads a riot act to all the other boys, and I like that especially she's saying what a real man would do. She's enforcing chivalry on these guys and telling them well, a respectable man would not be laughing at some poor girl's feelings.
But I also like a little bit that she's, even though she is revolutionizing their gender roles, she still ties into them some point. Like the first insult she gives them is a real man wouldn't do this, and not you guys are jerks.
That's true. She even has some strict gender roles of her own of like, well, this is what a man should do. Like,
right.
Yeah. And yes, she then seeks out Seonji, which leads to seeing Otori's like kendo club with that you dress in your classic like yukata and have your wooden training swords. I learned about kendo club through the Ranma anime, which is set at a high school with first series villain Kuno, the head of the fencing club, and he's so into it. He never wears other clothes. He always wears his training clothes, and is constantly swinging around his training stick as well. And so Utena confronts Seonji, and Seonji just kind of just laughs it off again because he's a dick who doesn't respect women, and he accepts. She talks to him in the only way he knows how to respond, challenging him to a duel. And so, for the honor of her friend, they're going to have a duel. And then we cut away to the shadowy Greek chorus of unnamed girls in the show, which I really love these characters.
It's cool, yeah.
The shadow girls, I love them. It's a fun storytelling device. Like you can kind of tell them apart, and they a little bit have their own characters, but not so much that you're like, yes, that one, but just enough to make them a delight to see every episode.
It's such a fun like comedy cutaway, and you get to see how they find new ways each episode to do shadow plays. But then in addition to that, like they talk you through the themes of the episode and kind of further explain what's going on. And in this one, they're talking about just the challenge has been made and the prince is here, but does she really want to be a prince? And this is one other clip I have here. I love how they often end their scenes with this little bit.
でも勇者様、森に掟があること、果たしてあなたはご存知かしら？かしら、ご存知かしら？
Yeah, it's very cute. And this pair of characters, they also remind me of the other pearls that you meet in the Steven Universe series as well. Like they really remind me of Blue and Yellow Pearl, at least when we first meet them. Just these kind of background characters who explain things for the bigger characters. And so then Utena gets challenged to meet at the mysterious forest that no one's allowed to go to.
What is your fascination with my mysterious forest of mystery?
The mysterious enchanted forest at the back of the school,
Yeah,
that no one may enter.
Yeah, just don't think about it. Focus. To just think of you sitting at your desk and like, better do my math homework, and then you just look out the window like, the mystery forest. What is this?
That seems more fun. And so this show is of its time, so there are transformation sequences for characters, but there's also a transformation sequence for a door.
Yes,
that comes up a lot, and for I guess walking up the stairs too. It's like it's part of that milieu of transformation sequences that I don't think. I mean, prove me wrong, kids, but I don't think we do that anymore. We did that past the 90s, but it was like, yes, you will see the same bits over and over, but we'll work really hard to make them nice looking for you.
Yeah, I think they're coming straight off of Sailor Moon that had so many transformation sequences that save on your episodic budget because you can just sub in about 20 seconds of animation here and there.
And I remember like even in non-shoujo shows of this type, like even in something like Slayers, when Lena did the Dragon Slave attack, it would be reused animation every time.
Yeah, or any mecha shows, transformation sequence and interlocking gears. Like, I mean, even as far back as, even way before it, but like on Voltron, that's, I think, the first time I recognize that. Or even in live action shows, like in all the Sentai shows, they spend a lot of money on the robot transformation sequence, and then they're going to reuse that every single episode of the entire season. It's just a production it's a core part of television production in Japan, at least back then it was. And I would bet you still see it more than not, but maybe they've recognized that viewers are more savvy to it now than they were 20 years ago. Not unlike actually another Eva connection when she grabs the door handle, like the water droplet hitting the ring and the ripples coming out like that. That also really reminded me of Evangelion, the constant appearance of rippling water in that show.
It's all very well done, this whole sequence.
Oh yeah, I mean the trick I had in that first episode watching, I'm like, wow, this looks really good, without realizing like I'm gonna see this more than once.
It surprised me. I'm like, boy, this is pretty intense. And then when it hit episode 2, I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they were saving this up.
But yes, the water all comes out. The door opens. She has to go up like a very long, mysterious stairway, all as the opening J. Cesar sound was playing. Just this intense song about called the translated version I saw was "The Eve of Absolute Evolution Revolution" is the name of it. And also Ikuhara is a member of the chorus in that too.
He's really? Wow.
Folks singing along with it.
Very interesting choice to have this sort of like just blaring rock opera. I mean, this show is all about melodrama and I think they know it's also a bit humorous how high the stakes are for this like school drama. So I like how that plays into all of it, even the music.
And so once she finally gets to the top after almost 2 minutes of footage that will be repeated, again, on Sailor Moon, they spread out that if Sailor Moon has like 2 minutes of repeated animation, they spread it out a bit more. When you see it all in one long sequence, I think it is more recognizable to you. And it's like, it's a fun sequence to watch, but if you don't love it, I think it just tells you like, well, you could use the bathroom right now. This scene will still be going.
Those stairs are beautifully animated. It's also a very nice trick. If you're animating something turning like that, you only need to do a little bit of it, because if you repeat it, it fools the eye into thinking she's actually making progress,
Yeah. No, the circular stairs might be my favorite feature of of that whole sequence. But once she gets to the top with her wooden sword, she runs into Saionji and she's confused by everything. There's a floating castle above them, and I like in these first couple episodes, she's just like, what's this trick of the light, or these like mirages? Like this can't be real, right?
Oh, there's an upside down castle in the sky. Must be a trick of the light.
It looks like the Sleeping Beauty castle in like Disneyland. It's very much like a European castle of that style,
but turned upside down.
It's got to be. It's like early CGI, right? That effect.
It does look.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Ikuhara was pretty experienced with melding CGI and animation by that point, because not that it's aged particularly well, but there's a big CGI element in the Sailor Moon R film that when I last rewatched it with my pals, we all had a little laugh at it. But it was as good as it could be at the time. So as the duel even begins, Anthe enters in her wedding dress, which I like her, red flowing dress outfit, and even she's carrying the 2 flowers like a bride would a bouquet, the 2 flowers for the fighters. Like I really like that. Anthe then wishes Utena good luck instead of her betrothed, which Saionji didn't like that. And
no, more slaps.
Yeah, just oof. I mean, it's an easy technique to get you to hate a guy and to root more for Utena. So I get why they're going for it, but yeah.
And then the scent of the rose that she pins to her chest, Anthe pins to Utena's chest, reminds her of the scent of the prince.
Yeah.
And so they're laying in all this stuff, like, and then I think in an earlier scene, Wakaba's like, hey, why does the crest on your ring the same as the crest of the school? Just like, well, you see where this is going.
Yes, yeah. Well, and also you see that, like, no other person in the school, I think, looks like Anthe, like the skin color and hair color, like, but they are the same as the prince in the opening. Like, this isn't spoiler talk, it's just obvious things from the beginning, so you're already meant to make those kind of connections. And also, speaking of things you'll see a lot, like those ringing bells, the bells that ring that announces the start of a duel. I really like that animation too. And also Saionji looks really creepy pulling that sword out of Anthe.
So also dipping your dance partner too at the same time.
Yeah. It looks cooler when Utena does it, and sexier. I like it more there. But yes, the battle begins. Seonji even taunts Utena, telling her like, "Oh, you're good for a girl," and also mocks that her choice to be a prince. Like this is just about Utena proving her right to exist, pretty much for the start of the series. And like most duels or battles in animes like this, it's also kind of a conversation.
Yeah, because fighting is expensive to animate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
And Seonji, honestly, it's pretty cheap of him to use a legendary sword against a wooden practice sword.
Yeah, where's the ref here in this match?
Anthony is
the
being
world
too
said a
important.
new duelist would appear.
Yeah.
So he did think this was a real duel on that level, but also is a dick.
Yes, yeah, just he wanted to have all the advantages in the fight. But in cutting the practice sword in half like that really puts her at such a disadvantage as an underdog. You're like, oh, how can she win? I know she's the main character, but how can she win? And that makes it even more satisfying when she's like, I'm not giving up. He's like, okay, fine. You've earned the right to be defeated by me. And then just her thrusting like run with it is such just a cool like shot and pose. I really like that. And though I don't fully understand physically how she was able to hit his rose while defending hers and not being cut at all by it.
Right.
It all happens very fast.
She has main character shielding, so I think that helped.
It's and that you can only hit the rose and not like somebody's like shoulder or something, But I love the shock on Seonji's face as the rose petals just fly everywhere.
Isn't that like fencing where you have to touch their chest with the end of the fencing foil?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like fencing meets kendo, pretty much.
Yes, because Seonji's in the kendo club, but I believe Judy and Miki are in the fencing club, so they have different styles when we get to their fights.
Ooh, that's cool. I look forward to that.
So it's not, you can tell they didn't just paste a new body over old animation for the duels.
And Toga's being a real creeper, watching in on this, and like he's already excited to finally fight Utena, which I think that's probably coming a little farther down the line. I also really love the pacing of this episode, that like really this fight could just continue into the next fight, but they need to build up a lot of stuff, and also they've run out of time in the episode. So Tena's just like outside in the next scene. She's like, boy, that was weird. All right, I'm not even going to think about that. Which is so funny that you could get inside a secret compartment where you saw all this like magic stuff happening, and then just
I wonder what's on TV tonight.
Well, I won that fight. Pretty weird, I guess, but I got to study for tomorrow's exam. But then we get a very cute ending as Anthe announces that she is now engaged to Utena. The next episode, then, let's just go straight into that. Like, it begins with more Utena fangirls just like drooling over her almost. It's crazy. And we get the same shots of Otori setting up as we head over to the homeroom. I'm shocked it took to episode 2 to get to Utena's homeroom, too.
I feel like there's very little homeroom fun in this series.
Yes. Yeah, there's significant
significant
cut downs on homeroom gossip.
I mean, I don't think there's like a test episode like, oh no, we got to study for the big test.
In this case, we do get to go to the homeroom just so she can check in with Wakaba and find out how she's doing. And I think it's really, I think there's some really good comedy drawings in this whole interaction with Wakaba.
Yes.
It reminded me that this show, it has slightly less of the really funny, silly drawings that Sailor Moon had. The secret sauce of Sailor Moon is how many like wacky, cartoony drawings they shove in. Yeah. But you get a little of that in this interaction with Wakaba, and I also appreciate like Wakaba is kind of showing she's smarter than you may have thought, because she's like, oh yeah, I read this whole book, and obviously there are themes similar to my life, and now I've learned from this book, and I've grown up.
It was once a cheesy romance novel with a happy ending she hated, but now she needs that in her life.
Yes. Which I feel like that is where some of the like adolescence, middle school, high school feelings come in, of like, oh, I used to think this was so stupid, and then I had some life experience, and I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, totally. And also, this is where Wakaba, now that Seonji is in the past, she is even more attached to Utena after this, calling her true love. And I just love the half-lidded, tired look on Utena. I'm just like, please stop with the true love thing, please. And then we get the big sequence, the lengthy magical elevator sequence.
Yeah, and like we find out the end of the world is a person, right? In the sequence,
who sends letters to people,
and they're following the instructions of the letters.
Yes,
Yes.
and it's a one-way thing too. They don't send letters back to end of the world, but
Yes.
But this is where the first time they bring up the cracking the shell metaphor that comes up a lot in the series. And, again, straight from Hermann Hesse's Demian, like an existentialist classic of high school years. Once I had read enough Kafka to impress my friends, and I was like, time to read a little Hermann Hesse then. I have a reputation as an angsty teen to uphold here. I don't really get the card. Is the card game they're playing bridge, or what is this card game?
I have no idea.
I have no clue.
Hearts? I don't know from card games.
Is that how Go Fish works? I don't know.
It would be funny if they're playing something as childish as Go Fish as they're talking about this. But of course, we all know what they call card games in Japan. Trump.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Karuta.
Well, that too, but specifically those card games are called Trump. But anyway, I do whatever card game they're playing. I think it's symbolically fitting that as they're talking about the now pairing of Anthe and Utena, seemingly what the game is if you can create a pair of cards, you throw it into the center of the thing. So you see like 2 jacks and 2 tens, and the whole conversation ends with 2 jokers being thrown on it. So,
Joker mode.
but
from the Special Otori Academy deck of cards that I assume they all get in their dorms.
You should at least get 1 deck of cards. I would hope
Absolutely.
when you go to college you get a deck of cards if it's fancy enough. My Harvard brand cards. And I also like as they're talking, you get to see like Jury. She's pointing out like how it doesn't make any sense at all that somebody they've never heard of also has the ring that lets you get into their special clubhouse.
They're attending super crazy no way school.
Yes.
From the Venture Brothers.
But I mean, this exposition is very important because you need to know what the council knows, and that they know more than Utena about this, but they're also just being messed around with by this end of the world character who's commanding them to do stuff. But they're at least a level above all the hoi polloi of Otori Academy. And yes, then Mickey hits his stopwatch again and is just like, what does this mean? He just repeats a thing somebody says, and I am so confused.
We even see like the time on the stopwatch. It's a very well drawn like insert shot of the stopwatch.
I got to give it. I mean, the animation timer who was able to get it set probably to exactly how long that scene lasts. I thumbs up to them. In a digital world now, you can just sub in that number as the timing goes. But in the Cell game, I think it was probably a little tougher.
Gotta draw that in.
Yeah.
So then after we visit with them, Kaba and Utena are walking hand in hand off to their dorms, and there's more great comedy of just Wakaba just getting closer and closer and more intimate as they walk, including her just being carried by Utena until Utena is just like has to catch her breath. I love that gradual increase of comedy there.
Yeah, I love her like leaning over the side of the bridge, just
like, please, oh god. Utena has to be so happy she doesn't have to be roommates with Wakaba this year. I bet Wakaba made a lot of like accidental like, oh, you were in the shower. I'm so sorry. They didn't really get to have their cake and eat it too with the next bit where Utena goes to her haunted house thing where, nobody else is there in the dorm room.
Hasn't been used for 10 years, that building.
Yeah. And then she opens the door and you get this scene that is fully presented as reality of just like a destroyed room with a rat in it, and she's just freaked out and grossed out.
That scene confused me because I thought the same thing, but she touches the doorknob and then has like the fantasy of the disgusting room, and then she actually opens the door and we see the nice room.
It's a fun way to play with expectations.
No, there's still a mouse inside.
Yeah, there is still a mouse waiting
I
for
hate
her.
that thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about Choo Choo. Not a fan of Choo Choo.
It's very much of this time. Again, Evangelion had one of these too, Pen. It was just like, hey, if the drama's too much for you, this goofball will run around and be like Slimer having fun in the background. It was just an element of this. I mean, we had look at things like Tenchi Muyo, and I'm drawing a blank on other examples, but there's usually one of these things in every show.
Magic Knight Rayearth had their little.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
Rayearth had one that was similar to Ryo-Oki and Tenchi.
Yeah.
This thing is weird. It's like a very Japan does this well. It's like ugly cute, where it's like this weird ass looking thing that's kind of cute but also grotesque, and definitely very merchandisable. But again, like the transformation sequences, this is very much like obligatory element of something like this.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
Choo Choo is actually supposed to be a monkey.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
But it's a monkey but also a mouse.
I only thought mouse. Yeah.
I feel like when you look at Chiho Saito's drawings of Choo Choo, you're like, okay, I can kind of see monkey. Like the ears are still that size, but they're a little more horizontal on the sides of the face.
The one clue he's a monkey is that in that device where they put a frame over the image, instead of spinning roses, they're spinning bananas.
Yes.
Oh, right. I missed that. Because with Choo Choo Rocket and my limited knowledge of Japanese onomatopoeia, I identify that with a mouse too.
Yeah,
choo,
and in
choo.
fact, when she imagined opening the door and seeing the mouse goes choo like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Choo Choo doesn't particularly behave like a monkey. Choo Choo is the size of a mouse and behaves like a mouse. And as you said, chew. That's the sound a mouse makes.
it's so weird. It's a cute mascot. When we first see him, he's asphyxiating on something.
That disturbed me.
Yeah, it was a disturbing drawing of just the food caught in his throat.
And his face turns dark and he's dead.
Yeah.
And I think what disturbed me even more with that was Utena's kind of uninterested reaction. She's like, oh, you need water. They were doing I've seen this joke in a million anime of a character that is angry and eats rice too fast. And they're like, oh, no, give me water. I need water. The rice is stuck in my throat. But this is to such an extreme of a giant thing of food is stuck in its throat and it keels over dead. But it still is give it water and then it will swallow it.
The tie is a weird choice to me too. It's he's like business monkey. What's going on?
It's the tie that matches the school uniform.
Oh,
I think
see.
that you see on some of the people at school.
There's just a lot going on with Choo Choo.
There's
I
a
gotta
lot.
say.
And we're not too far removed from Donkey Kong 94, where Donkey Kong got his tie. Maybe
Yeah, there we go.
it's just what we were doing.
Monkeys wear ties.
you put a tie on that monkey. He's naked.
And I think, she gives him the little teaspoon of water. And I think this is supposed to highlight oh, look, Utena's thrown into this weird situation with this woman she never really knew about until yesterday, who's now now I'm your bride. And here's my mouse. It's anthropomorphized and also a monkey. And now it's choking and dead. And Utena's like, sure. And gives it water.
I'll save your monkey.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Choo Choo instantly warms up to her. She saved his life.
Anthe is a bad pet owner. I mean, inexcusable.
Yeah, that's her.
You can't just let it eat anything.
Your animal's dying.
Your mouse can't eat all this. The amount of cake this mouse eats just in the second episode. It's our monkey eats. Also, it's all that sugar for a monkey seems dangerous.
Definitely.
But yes, Utena does go into a room and sees that it's actually pristine and beautiful because Anthe has been working all day on cleaning it up and is in, the classic maid uniform with the hair tied back and even washing the floor with just a washcloth on your knees.
I was going to ask, what do we think about the choice to make Anthe I'm guessing Indian character?
That
there's
seems
something.
to be. It looks like a bindi type mark on her head. Yes.
There is a bit of baggage to the one brown character being the subservient slave. And I was wondering
who gets passed around like a piece of property.
Yeah.
And,
it's definitely a choice they made.
I think again the manga sets this more in the real world, so I forget if they say anything explicit about where Anthe is from. I think maybe it was meant to sort of other her as a foreigner. And since the Otori Academy is so French European, I think maybe they thought this would be an easy way to do that. But yeah, it's always a source of discomfort that the one character of color is the one people pass around like property and abuse and hit and is subservient and problematic fave.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'd be lying if Evangelion didn't have like 18 worse things than this to apologize for. Like, I actually had the same like baggage thing written down too, of just like, the darker skinned person acting as the personal servant to the lighter skinned person, and just this. It's a very old school trope of like, Anthe, as we find out through the series, she is a lot more complex than she seems on the surface here. But this definitely seems to be going into the trope that is in many things of just like of the hero goes to some native island, and the simple people there like, you saved me, I am your bride. Like, I think obviously Japan doesn't have that same history and baggage. They do have their own colonialism as well,
right, but not specifically with like black slaves.
I think so.
So what I'm saying is, like, if you made this in the West, like with Aladdin, they didn't want to make the genie a black character because they're like, okay, we don't want this our fun hero to have a black slave.
Yes, that's true.
Voiced by a white man.
Yeah, even worse with that. But yes, so over the meal as Choo Choo chokes to death. Anthe describes a whole lot of stuff. Also, I really love the little teacup that has the rose insignia branding in the bottom of it too. Like, this Otori Academy really is good at branding.
It's all about branding.
They're excellent branding. The Otori school store has everything you could ever want. There's teacups, decks of cards, stopwatches, anything.
As Anthe is explaining the system by which the Rose Bride is shared and everything, or won. There's a really good, and also explaining the ring's purpose, there's a really good just double pan across the room of just it's just Utena framed by the window, then it pans a long way just over darkness, and then it goes to Anthe framed by the window, and then it turns back around for a bigger close-up and then pans more. It's just it's really good. It also, obviously, with a black background and long pans, you save a little money, but artistically, there's lots of ways to save money that are not artistically pleasing.
Yes, it's definitely a creative money-saving method they employ a lot. So yes, it looks really cool, and then you don't necessarily realize, oh, hey, there's not a background on that.
And like, I feel like the school manual should have briefed Utena on a lot of this stuff. It's like, well, if you have the rose seal, you have to fight the dualist. I'm like, this school
that
seems based on that concept.
But nothing about the uniforms.
Exactly.
That's a lot of flaws.
She has the rule book in the first, God,
a lot of flaws in this rule book,
yeah. Include the part about the ring.
Well, maybe if you are there on the first day and you're going to be handed a rule book, if they see the ring on your hand, like, oh, you get the ring rule book, here's the extra one.
Here's the real rules.
Here's now it's 912 is the real number. As they're having their little conversation, we get to see that Seonji is more mad than ever, and he now that he's lost his magic sword, he's picking up a katana, and we go to commercial break with that.
Oh, there's a funny joke in here that's very like a reference to 90s Japan, where he's talking about like his romantic dream or whatever, and he's like, I wrote it in my exchange diary, and then Toga's like, you have an exchange diary? So that is a 90s Japanese pop culture thing that was like very popular with young girls. It was a type of journal that a lot of people would write in and like share like secrets and confessions and stuff with. So the joke is he's doing a very like feminine thing, and Toga's like roasting him for it.
That's funny.
There's a bit of comedy here. Like, I just typed in exchange diary because it's just translated as exchange diary. That no asterisk telling me what that is. So I was like, what is that? And that's what it is. 90s Japan, very feminine thing, very feminine fad.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I should.
Or like a touchy-feely relationship kind of thing.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I love you more. So that's in no way seems like a thing Saionji would be into, given what we have seen of his relationship with Anthe.
But it's a nice look that like the creators know like these characters are kind of ridiculous, and they are aware of how like over the top and over the top romantics all these characters are.
I also like you get to see what a badass Toge is, that when Saionji puts the sword to his throat, he's like, whatever, man. I don't care.
I'm the president.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Stab the president?
I didn't vote for him.
So then we cut to the next scene where Utena is just alone, and Choo Choo returns, and it's a cute little game of charades, but what he's acting out is just like Anthe is being like threatened and beaten.
Acting out horrific abuse that's happening like 100 feet away.
Yeah, it's scarier when you think of that. And though we, Utena is wondering what's going on, we then cut to Anthe and Saionji, like they're having a conversation. Saionji is like, come on, come back. And I like that Anthe is like, she's not combative, but just very clear, like, no, I'm not with you anymore. I'm with Utena. That's my deal now. And then, god damn, another slap. Like, there's just too many.
Saionji's the worst. Other than all the other terrible men in this series.
Yes,
but
yeah.
I thought we were out of Slap Town after episode 1. Like, okay, no more abuse for Anthe, but no.
Yeah, one slap per episode. You and then you use up your slap card. But after that slap, Utena finally gets outside, and again, this scene of very gendered cruelty, the presence of Choo Choo in it is just incredibly distracting.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a device like, oh, do you not like this? Well, here's a fun little character dancing around for you. And, like,
right, he's going to stab him in the foot with a fork.
Yeah.
And I do like the very Looney Tunes style in which he is crushed by his shoe. Like, it's seemingly he's killed Choo Choo. Like but that was part of the discomfort I had there too, that like we just saw him physically abuse her, and if you don't know Choo Choo is a Looney Tunes character, you think that he also just killed her pet. He's like, you know what, fuck you, I'm stepping on your pet and killing it as well.
Right.
Which that is a monkey that's smaller than a shoe. That's kind of crazy.
I haven't seen it.
And Utena at first refuses the fight, but she's given the unbreakable student regulations. You gotta do it. Them's the rules. It does say that in the rule book, though.
It does.
It's a school really just built for dueling. It's a duel place with a school built around it, really. And I like too how Utena's just like, well, then I'll just lose. Nobody says I have to try to win in these forced battles.
Yeah, it was awkwardly translated, but was it inferred that if she doesn't participate in these duels, that Anthe will be forced to leave the school?
Or she'll get kicked out. If Utena will get kicked out of
Utena will,
school.
okay, yeah. The
Yeah.
translation was a bit awkward, and I couldn't tell what the stakes were, really.
Well, and then Anthe, you can really see, it looks like heartbreak on her face, because Utena saying she's going to purposely lose is also a rejection of her, of just like, well, if I purposely lose, then Anthe isn't with her anymore, and she has to it's a tough place for Utena to be in, that she's forced into this relationship with Anthe that she is not into. Like, she doesn't want somebody cleaning up after her and calling her, Utena-sama all the time. But to lose, she's sending Anthe back to a very abusive relationship. So she doesn't have too many choices. Is that a message as well? That like women don't have many choices in society. They got to deal with it.
Here's your two bad choices. Which would you like? Because Utena saying, well, it's fine, I'll just lose against Saionji, can be seen as kind of cruel. But I think in some ways it's a little thoughtless if she's like, oh, I just lost on purpose. And now they'll understand that trading a person around as property is wrong. I think she wasn't. I think she was taking her nobility and naivete to be like, oh, but if I surely go tell them, hey, all these duels are wrong, they'll just stop doing it.
They'll just stop. They'll see the error of their ways.
Yes.
So once the duel is set, we do a quick cutaway to the shadowy chorus again, and now they're cowboys.
I like the fun, low budgetness of the reality of this, where towards the end, someone is holding a cactus and floating it by the screen, so it looks like they're traveling through a Western scene. It's cool. It's very funny.
There's so much comedy with them. I love their little cutaways. You don't need Choo Choo. You got these funny characters here, but you can't sell toys of shadows, I guess.
And basically, we could just fast forward 4 minutes into where the new animation starts, because we get
Utena gets her full transformation sequence where she gets little epaulettes onto her school uniform, and she gets a little frilly underskirt to her school jacket, and
I do like that. Yeah.
And she pulls a sword out of Anthony. Did we mention that previously? The sword was pulled out of her body.
Pulled it out of her. Yeah. That it looked creepy when Seonji did it.
The sword of Dios or whatever.
Yes.
Dios mio.
That's that's like third base in a lesbian relationship. You pull the sword out of the other.
Sword lesbians.
We've all got a sword in us.
I mean, well, honestly, this idea of the sword pulling out, I believe I heard of a quite lewd anime that was just about I think it's called Valkyrie Blade or something. It is about when two girls kiss, one turns into a sword and then they have sword fights.
They taught me that in Catholic school.
But yes, you're right. The full entrance, the pulling on the door, the walk up the stairs.
I was actually surprised just that they went as far as showing the stairs again too, and then like the gears turning or whatever. You get shots of that. I mean, they had to do this to make this show. I'm not complaining. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm in this world. I'm in a '90s show world where these kind of things just happened.
But I do like Casey. You mentioned the extra gartness of seeing Utena's final like transformation and the accessorizing
her
of
final
her
form.
Yes, yeah. I guess too. You compare it to Sailor Moon. This is in both cases their magical transformation is more just an embellishment of a school uniform.
That's true. Yeah. Yep.
Only in Utena's case, it's a boy's uniform getting kind of a dress added to it.
Getting some frills.
And also the Anthe chest light reveal, how it's done from multiple angles. This shows the kind of nerd I am. It reminds me of the presentation of the Matrix of Leadership from the Transformers film, animated film of the 80s. A similar white light coming out of a chest.
Boy, seizure warning on this show. These effects, they're not happening in our modern times. They were starting to like bother me a little bit. Like, wow, like I forgot about all the strobing that happened in these shows.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I guess within a year is the Pokemon Shock thing, wasn't it?
It's that, isn't it that December that it happened? December of 97?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So, this is, I guess, enjoy it while this lasts, Ikuhara. You won't be able to do this particular strobing effect again. Though, I've been watching that Stranger Things again. I'm trying to finish season 3. Every episode comes with a warning of, like, there's going to be some strobe effects. I'm like, why must every monster that shows up in Stranger Things create a strobe effect?
Another strobe monster.
But yes, Utena removes the sword, but the fight begins with him and his, intense katana, and he is not going for her flower. He is going for chopping her head off. And Utena is just all defensive in the fight. She is still in the trying to lose way of fighting, but also not get slashed to pieces.
And he's more impressed that she's not protecting her life; she's protecting the flower. She's more invested in that. He's like, oh, I admire that.
Yeah,
in you.
You're right. That is a good commentary on their duel. I like that. Yeah, and I think the second duel, it's more multi-layered. It doesn't go basically there's like 2 cuts in the first duel. In this duel, there's a little more sword play. So I like that. And also both have just there's a melodramatic song on just the walk up the stairs, but then there's a different melodramatic song under the fight.
Yes.
And just like, I am an actor, I play my part, like da, 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 da.
Yes, every episode is a new opera about the metaphorical character of whoever she's dueling.
Jay Cesar, he does such a good job of that. But
then we get a really weird scene where it looks like he's about to deliver a killing blow, but then her ring activates, and from the rotating castle, the ghostly prince image floats down into her body. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
And that gives her a big old power up. And again, if I was Seonji, I would complain to the refs about that as a performance enhancer.
Yeah.
Performance enhancing ghost.
I'd be swatting at that prince as it floated down. Like, get out of here, guy.
But yes, Utena gets a big power up and slashes through not just his flower, but the sword as well. And his katana is just like cut in half. And it's really cool. All the sword fights are really cool in this. And yes, the duel ends, and then it just cuts pretty much straight to Utena outside. They're just like, once the emotion of the duel is over, there's not not much time for like, let's talk about this, or like, hey, you're not doing this again.
And Toga's watching all these duels from afar.
Yeah, and he can't even believe this ghost.
This little stupid opera glass is like, aha.
I mean, yeah, I love that fits more with the kind of era that this makes it feel like. If he had night vision goggles or like regular binoculars, it looked too current. You're right. Yeah. But then it cuts to Utena. She's sitting in front of one of those fancy Japanese style cakes.
Those little tiny cakes. That monkey ruined. That's why I hate this monkey. Just like, that's her cake, you dumbass. Get out of there.
Dive head first into it.
Well, then again, though, Utena can't keep that kind of figure eating cake. So she's got to say she can just eat one strawberry. That's all. But yeah, that jerk Choo Choo destroys that nice cake. And but it's then even cuter that Choo Choo's like, wow, I destroyed your cake, but I saved the strawberry for you.
Aw, that's the best part.
Yeah, and it ends with Anthe's kind of like satisfied smile that Utena decided to win the duel and keep their relationship going.
And Utena's like playing it cool. She's like, well, I didn't win for your sake. I won because if he won, he'd torture your dumb monkey. So, and then
stupid monkey.
My last note is the show ends with them laughing at a strawberry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Delightful.
And then we get the end theme, Truth, or at least I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casey. The opening stays the same the whole series, but it's a new end theme each 13 episodes.
I think there are two different end themes, but the opening stays the same the whole series.
And I will say, if you watch the Nozomi Entertainment version of this online, it doesn't have the animation behind it because they're like,
sucks.
oh, there are too many credits. We don't know how to overlay these into the existing video, so let's just make new credits. So I looked up the actual ending animation, and I mean, at this time and still kind of now, like the best you'll get is a kind of nice screensaver, and that's what this is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love a good screensaver.
I mean, what is the Evangelion one but a screensaver?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the Sailor Moon ones at this point were just like, Usagi is walking.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Or like Bulma staring out into the rain in Dragon Ball. Like, I love all that. And they're always like down tempo, like mournful.
You know, the new Disney animated series Owl House? The creator of the series, Dana Terrace, she's a big classic 90s anime fan as well. And the ending of that is like one of these lo-fi walking cycle ones, and it looks really good. Like if I think the first, at least for a time, the full first episode of Owl House was just on YouTube, official from Disney. But at the very least, watch that ending. If you like classic anime endings like this one, the one for Owl House is really good.
That's
too.
on Disney Plus?
Not yet.
What's their problem?
Well, it's a brand new show. I think they want people to watch it on Disney XD.
I guess I'll just watch Onward instead. That came to home media surprisingly quickly.
Yes, yeah, that was the most recent film I've seen in theaters.
That came out not even a month ago.
I saw it on opening day just because I wanted to see the Simpsons short, honestly, and have an opinion on it. Which my opinion is too cutesy poo, as Burns would say. But anyway, yes, yeah, Utena. Those are the first two episodes. I really enjoyed it. It was giving me the feels of Evangelion meets Sailor Moon, and just that it was also just unlocking all of these tropes that I didn't realize were taken or influenced by Utena so much. And so I kind of just want to watch the whole show just to understand the language of it, really.
Me too.
Yes.
Oh, I love how it looks, and I'm just in love with just the this is like right before digital took over, just like all of the shortcuts they're using in this very low budget world. It makes for shows that look like nothing else, like these 90s animes, and that's why I find them fascinating. Oh, sorry, Casey.
No, I was when you said earlier that this is the same department or the same animation house that did Excel Saga just a few years later. I was like, wait, really? What is time?
Yeah, the digital artifact is not present on Utena.
A like very harsh looking digital show. Yes. There was a big learning curve for the anime industry. I'm glad we got through it.
But Casey, any final thoughts for our listeners on your episode?
I love this show. I wanted to do the first two because I feel like episode 1 introduces you to Utena, and then episode 2 really introduces you to the world and properly sets up the theme of the show. But I love this series. If you've got time on your hands and I'm looking for something to dig in the archives, yeah, it's 39 episodes and it goes by much faster than you expect. I guess I would say this came up only slightly in our conversation today, but I guess obviously trigger warning for abuse.
Yeah.
But I would also, because this does have a lot of queer coding, is a lot about sexuality, especially as it progresses, I would give some light trigger warnings for, like all things in this show, there's a lot of metaphor.
Yeah.
So,
more of those metaphors. Yeah, more of those metaphors went to above the surface in the movie as well, which is even more intense in those ways. So yeah, definitely, I agree with Casey's. Content warning stuff. Just be ready for that, to know that like most animes dealt with those topics back then too, or at least the serious ones did. I think that we've all learned how to better deal with those topics than we knew in 1997.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this show, but I think we've also talked about some of the problematic fave instances of it. So I understand it's not anyone's flavor, but I highly recommend it. I love this so much. I always enjoy sitting down and watching the whole thing or picking up a favorite episode. Like you said, how is this story carried across 39 episodes? They really do change it up and keep it interesting. The movie is 20 years old.
Yes.
And it still kind of looks amazing. Even before being cleaned up. Like I watched it on DVD on an HD TV and was like, oh no, this still looks pretty great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I love it. I'm here for anyone's deep dive about it, especially as we are into a more educated world about gender and sexuality and all of the gender binary, gender roles, all of these things. I would love the youths of today, the Gen Z, to get their takes on it, because I think there's a lot more to be learned.
It's all on YouTube for free, and there's like 18 to 20 hours of it to watch. So knock yourself out.
But thank you so much, Casey, again for all your support and for picking out such a great episode for us to do. I mean, this is normally our plug section. I mean, is there anything you'd want to plug right now other than just like watch Utena?
Watch Utena. I'm in the New Jersey, New York area. So if you're also there and into games, look up Double Exposure conventions in New Jersey. They're 3 times a year, and they're really awesome gaming conventions. I try and run a couple board games in those. My boyfriend runs a couple RPGs where he serves breakfast foods. So it's always a good time. And watch more Utena. Everyone go watch BoJack Horseman if you haven't yet.
That I'm still fucked up from that final season.
Oh, God, yeah.
Can't do it right now.
Maybe it's not the best one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You haven't watched Knives Out yet? Go check that out. It's a delight.
I want to.
Well, thank you so much, Casey, for coming back.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, thank you guys for having me on again. Have a good one.
So thank you again to Casey for being a very generous patron and always for her great picks. It's so much fun to learn all about Utena and finally watch it for the first time. But if you want to support us and get all of our shows 1 week in advance and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. If you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes over 100 bonus podcasts at this point, so if you enjoyed hearing us talk about cartoons, there's so much you haven't heard on the Patreon, and that includes all of our limited mini-series like Talking of the Hill, Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, and the recently released and recently started Talking Mission Hill. We're doing the entire first season and only season of Mission Hill with the Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon format. There's so much stuff going on there. Interviews, deleted scene specials, end of season wrap-ups for Talking Simpsons, and so much more. Again, there is so much happening there that you probably haven't heard if you're not a patron. And Henry can tell everybody out there what's happening at the $10 level if you sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. As you hear once a month on the preview of it, each month on the What a Cartoon feed is the What a Cartoon movie, where we we talk about a different animated feature film, and in the full version, often over 4 hours about a different animated feature film. Last month, we did SpongeBob SquarePants the movie. Had so much fun with that. This month, another cool one coming your way. And, you know, if you like all this anime talk, we've done so many anime movies on the What a Cartoon Movie, like Akira and the Animatrix and Cowboy Bebop the movie. So much fun. You can hear the entire back catalog and each new one that comes out each month if you head on up to the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. I have another podcast, by the way, outside of this network. It's called Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast, and you can find that wherever you find podcasts. But if you go to patreon.com/Retronauts and sign up at the $5 level there, you can get 2 exclusive episodes every month of Retronauts. Again, that is patreon.com/Retronauts for my other podcast, Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
You can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. I'm sure to tweet a bunch of fun stuff about what I'm working on or video games I'm playing, all that Animal Crossing. I'm probably still pretty deep into it by the time you're hearing this. And also, if you're following at HENEREYG on Twitter, why don't you also follow the official Twitter account of this podcast? That's at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod covers all the stuff going on both What a Cartoon and Talking Simpsons. Anytime new podcasts go out, whether on the free feed or on the Patreon, you'll know about it along with tons of other cool stuff. So please follow that on Twitter at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for our extended free preview of this month's episode of What a Cartoon Movie. We'll see you then.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.